I got to do the proper intro.
It's on.
Welcome to Clay Time with Mr. Barnes, children. Today, we're going to learn how to glaze. Okay, check out this. So here's what the glaze is probably going to look like. The powder settles and it's watery on top. So we're going to stir it until all the water gets mixed in. What color do I got here? It says I have a dark reddish purple. That's what color I'm using. Does that look dark reddish purple to you?
Looks brown.
No. So the glaze in the bucket is not what it's going to look like when it comes out. Okay, so I've mixed this now. That's pretty good, right? Does that look like the consistency of cream? Can you see it?
Yeah.
With the camera, can you see it? Yeah, that looks like cream. Okay, but that's not good enough yet. So I'm gonna set my stick aside. I'm gonna make sure I clean up after myself. I have two bowls. Back in the glaze room, there's bowls, there's a little shelf that you can pull out, and there's lots of little bowls like this. So I'm gonna get one bowl. I'm gonna get myself a little scoop here. And then I have one of my strainers, and I'm gonna strain it. Do you see why I strained it? See all those little chunks? Those are fine. That's just glaze that's kind of solidified. We can put that back in the bucket. But now I have a strained glaze. Okay, so with tile one, you have 4 tiles. Okay, so here's the deal. I know that a lot of you can't find your tiles, or some of them broke. If you want to partner up with your neighbor, that's fine. I should have just had you do that to begin with. It doesn't matter, whatever. Okay, tile number 1, you're gonna do 1, 2, 3, and 4 coats. So you can see what it looks like if you only do 1 coat, if you do 2 coats, if you do 3 coats, and if you do 4 coats. Tile 2, you're gonna dip, and then you're gonna double dip it halfway. So you can see what 1 dip at 2 seconds looks like, and what 2 dips at 2 seconds looks like. So a total of 4 seconds. Then you're gonna, on the double dip one, you're also just on the back, you're gonna scratch through it with like a needle tool so you can see what it looks like. That's another way of decorating your pot, is to glaze it and then scratch through the glaze. Number 3, you're gonna pick 2 glazes and layer them. So you'll either paint or dip one color and then paint or dip another color on top of that. It's not like mixing paint. If you pick white and black and paint them over the top of each other, it might sort of stay whitish and black, but the glazes, they melt and they kind of mix together a little bit during the firing. But if you were to take, like, say you wanted gray, if you thought you can mix black and red, look at my face. You see my face? No. Black and white, if you mix those together, you're gonna get like a reddish brown, because it's not really like paint. It's chemistry, it's different. And the glaze, or the color in the glaze, does not develop until it hits that high temperature. The 4th tile, you're gonna paint your 3 coats, but you're also gonna use something called iron oxide. So you're gonna paint one little line of iron oxide and then paint over your tile, and then you'll take the iron oxide again and do one little brush stroke at the end. Okay, so what I have is black iron oxide. Sometimes we get red iron oxide, but this time I have black iron oxide. It looks about the same. The black iron oxide though, or if it's red, I only have black for right now. Do not mess around with this ish, because if you get this on your clothes, it's over. This will 100% dramatically stain your clothes. So it's really, really strong. Okay, so we're gonna do, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do all 4, but I'm gonna do the 4 coats. So I'm gonna show you what this looks like. Okay, so I have my paintbrush here. I'm gonna paint the whole thing. That's 1 coat. And see how quickly it dries? What it's doing is the bisque is pulling the water out of the glaze and it's leaving the powder on the surface, okay? Once it's dry, I'm gonna take the paintbrush and I'm gonna go, for my 2nd coat, I'm gonna only do it, like 2/3 or 3/4 of the way, okay? Because I gotta do 4. You're gonna have to let it dry. Okay, once it's dry, you're gonna go halfway and do your 3rd coat, okay? And once that dries, then you'll do the 4th coat just at the top. So you'll be able to see that gradation, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4 coats, what that looks like. Okay, I'm gonna show you, pause. Your tile should be able to stand like that because I want you to see what it looks like if the glaze is on a flat surface that's horizontally flat to the kiln shelf, and what it's like when it's vertical, because it does melt and it can sort of drop a little bit. But if your tile, if you made it and it doesn't want to stand up like that, if it's wobbly, then you're gonna have to do it like that, which is a little bit more risky, okay? So if you get the glaze too close to the bottom, if you're doing it like that, it could stick to the shelf. So you gotta leave yourself a 1/4 of an inch of space, safety space. So, you know, like that, okay? So here's the black iron oxide. You have to mix this really well because this settles really fast. Like every time you're gonna use this, yeah, there we go. Every time you use this is gonna look watery. This will never look like the consistency of cream because this is not a glaze, this is a stain. So this is the pigment that colors glazes only. It has no other glaze forming properties in it. And it stays really watery and it's very, very strong. So what you're gonna do when you use the iron oxide is you're gonna paint just a little line or something and then paint your glaze over the top of it. You're gonna do 3 coats. And you gotta be careful, let it fully dry because the water can interact from the glaze with that iron oxide and it can blend or mush your design. So we'll do this, my 2nd coat. Oh, I can do my 4th coat now. So there's my 4th coat on the top. And it's probably good. Do the 3rd, and then on the other side, again, I'm gonna stir this again, and then I'm gonna kind of tap on the side. I'm gonna wait until it dries. I gotta wait till it dries. So when you dip, you know, you're gonna dip for 2 seconds, shake it off, and then you'll double dip, and then the 2 glazes later. That makes sense. Everybody needs to make sure you write that down in your notebooks. If you have questions while you're doing it, make sure you come and ask me. So that's dry enough, and we'll do a little design with iron oxide.
Why'd you do the first one if you can't see it?
Oh man, I just jacked that all up. Why did I do the first one if I can't see it? Because once the glaze melts, I want you to see what it looks like if the iron is underneath the glaze, because it will still show up, or if it's on top, if it looks, how different it looks. That's ugly, but whatever, it'll work. That's why this is practice. Okay, we're done. I have this big vase, and like every time that we start glazing, I'm gonna make sure that I wipe it down first. Make sure that there's no dust on it anywhere. I've already wiped this one, but make sure you wipe the whole thing. Okay, so in here, what I have is the black iron oxide. I got a paintbrush in here, I'm gonna take that out. Okay, this stuff is really, really strong. It has to be stirred pretty much constantly while you're using it. You wanna make sure that you're not splashing it everywhere because it will stain your clothes. So this is one way of applying the iron oxide, is to do a really, I mean, not a thick coat, but a really thorough coat so that it soaks in to the whole, yeah, so. You gotta let those dry now. Yeah, again. Okay, so I'm gonna let this, I'm getting this in all those little nooks and crannies. And once I get the whole thing coated, what I'm gonna do is take a clean sponge again, and I'm gonna have some water next to me, and I'm gonna wipe most of it off. And you gotta keep moving the sponge around. So what this will do is it'll leave the stain in the recesses of my carved design, and I'll get a nice definition around all my carving. And then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. So we're gonna suck up some of the glaze. And then I've got these channels in here, so I'm just gonna kind of carefully squeeze, and I can draw the glaze on there. Okay, so here's a glazing problem that you'll run into if your glazes go on too thick. You can kind of see that this is starting to crack off, and if I set this down and kind of get my finger underneath that, it'll pull right off. That's exactly what would happen in the kiln. So I've got it, this is no good. Where it's cracking, if you have your glaze that cracks, that probably means it's going to craze in the kiln, and that es no bueno, so we gotta fix that.